Fear controls more of your life than you realize. It shapes your decisions, influences your relationships, and limits your potential. Most people live their entire lives guided by fear. Fear of failure, fear of rejection, fear of judgment, fear of the unknown. It's not always obvious. Sometimes it's subtle, a hesitation, a moment of self-doubt, an excuse disguised as a rational decision. But at the core of it all is fear. Fear keeps you stuck. It stops you from speaking up when you have something valuable to say. It prevents you from taking action on your goals because you're afraid of getting it wrong. It keeps you in situations that no longer serve you because you're scared of what might happen if you walk away. Fear creates hesitation, and hesitation creates regret. And the worst part is, most people don't even realize how much fear is shaping their lives. But here's the truth. Fear is not the problem. Fear is a natural response. It's hardwired into your biology. It's meant to protect you. But the problem is that your mind doesn't distinguish between real danger and imagined danger. It reacts the same way whether you're facing a life-threatening situation or just the fear of embarrassment. And because of that, most people live as though they're under constant threat. Their mind is always looking for danger, always scanning for potential problems, and that creates stress, anxiety, and hesitation. Fear is not something you can eliminate. It's not going to disappear. But you can train yourself to respond to it differently. You can learn to feel the fear and move forward anyway. You can rewire your mind so that fear no longer controls you, so that you can take action even when you're uncertain, so that you can pursue your goals even when you feel doubt, so that you can face rejection without letting it define you. That is what it means to live fearlessly. Not to eliminate fear, but to master it. Fearless people are not born that way. They are made. They have trained themselves to override the emotional response of fear. They have conditioned their mind to take action despite uncertainty. They have learned how to shift their focus from what could go wrong to what could go right. They have learned how to manage their thoughts, control their emotions, and take bold action, even when they're uncomfortable. The strategy for a fearless life is not about becoming reckless. It's not about ignoring fear or pretending it doesn't exist. It's about understanding how fear works, recognizing it when it shows up, and knowing how to respond to it with strength, confidence, and clarity. Because once you understand how to rewire your mind to handle fear, you become unstoppable. You stop hesitating. You stop second-guessing yourself. You stop holding back. And when that happens, you start making decisions faster, taking bigger risks, and pursuing your goals with confidence. So the question is, are you ready to stop letting fear control your life? Are you ready to shift from a mindset of hesitation and doubt to a mindset of action and certainty? Because the truth is, fear is not going to disappear. But once you understand how to manage it, once you train yourself to move forward, despite it, there's nothing you can't achieve. Fear is not logical. It's emotional. Your mind might know that there's no real danger, but your body doesn't care. When you feel fear, your nervous system responds automatically. Your heart rate increases, your breathing gets shallow, and your muscles tense up. This is the fight or flight response. It's an ancient survival mechanism designed to protect you from physical threats. But the problem is, your mind triggers this response even when there's no actual danger. You feel fear when you face criticism, when you walk into a room full of strangers, when you start a new project, when you're vulnerable with someone emotionally. Your mind treats these situations as if you're facing a life or death threat. And that's why fear feels so powerful. It's wired into your physiology. This is why trying to think your way out of fear rarely works. Your logical mind knows that giving a presentation isn't dangerous, but your body still responds as if you're being chased by a predator. And that's why most people freeze. They hesitate. They delay. Their body is saying, stay safe. Don't risk it. Don't put yourself in harm's way. And unless you know how to override that response, you'll stay stuck. The first step to mastering fear is understanding how it operates. Fear thrives in uncertainty. It grows when you don't know what's going to happen. When your mind senses a gap between what you know and what you're about to face, it fills that gap with worst-case scenarios. It imagines failure, rejection, embarrassment, and loss. And the more you focus on those imagined outcomes, the more fear grows. Your mind creates a loop. You feel uncertain, so you hesitate. That hesitation creates more doubt. More doubt creates more fear. And before you know it, you've talked yourself out of taking action. The key is to stop letting fear control that gap. You do that by interrupting the pattern, by giving your mind certainty where it feels uncertainty. One of the most powerful ways to do this is through preparation. Confidence comes from competence. When you prepare, when you study, when you practice, you create a sense of certainty. You give your mind something to hold on to. If you're afraid of public speaking, rehearse your presentation until you know it backward and forward. If you're nervous about starting a business, study successful business models and understand the steps you need to take. If you're afraid of confrontation, practice having difficult conversations. When you prepare, you reduce the mental gap that creates fear. And when the gap closes, fear loses its grip. But preparation alone is not enough. Because no matter how prepared you are, fear will still show up. And that's where conditioning comes in. You have to train your nervous system to handle fear differently. You have to build a new emotional response. This is what separates fearless people from everyone else. They don't eliminate fear. They train themselves to handle it. When fear shows up, they don't freeze. They take action. They don't wait until they feel ready. They move before they feel confident. Because they've conditioned themselves to see fear as a signal, not a stop sign. One of the fastest ways to condition your mind for fearlessness is through exposure. Fear shrinks when you face it repeatedly. Most people try to avoid situations that make them uncomfortable. But avoidance reinforces fear. Every time you avoid a situation because it makes you nervous, you send a message to your subconscious that the situation is dangerous. And that strengthens the fear response. But when you face it, when you walk into the room even though you're nervous, when you make the call even though you feel uncomfortable, when you take action even though your heart is racing, you weaken the fear. You train your mind to realize that nothing bad happens. And over time, the fear fades. Think about a child learning to swim. At first, they're terrified of the water. But the more time they spend in it, the more their nervous system adapts. Their mind stops treating water as a threat. And eventually, swimming becomes second nature. That's how you rewire fear. You face it until your mind stops treating it as a threat. And the fastest way to accelerate this process is through progressive exposure. Start with small, manageable challenges. If you're afraid of public speaking, start by speaking to a small group of friends. Then speak at a small event. Then work your way up to larger audiences. When you build confidence in small steps, your subconscious starts adapting. Your mind learns, I can handle this. And that creates momentum. Another powerful strategy for mastering fear is to shift your focus. Fear grows when you focus on what could go wrong. Confidence grows when you focus on what you can control. Most people obsess over the outcome. They worry about how people will respond, whether they'll fail, whether they'll embarrass themselves. But fearless people shift their focus to the process. They focus on what they can control in the moment. If you're giving a speech, you can't control how people will react. But you can control your preparation. You can control your body language. You can control your breathing. If you're starting a business, you can't control how the market will respond. But you can control your work ethic. You can control how much you learn. You can control your response to setbacks. The mind is always searching for certainty. And when you give it certainty in the form of action, the fear response weakens. When you train yourself to focus on what you can control, your mind stops spinning worst-case scenarios. It stops feeding fear, and that creates a sense of calm, even in chaos. This is why some people thrive under pressure. Their mind is trained to focus on the next step, not the outcome. They stay locked in on what they can control. And because of that, fear doesn't shake them. Fearless people also know how to shift their emotional state on command. Fear is not just mental, it's physical. Your body holds on to the tension of fear. So if you want to override it, you have to change your body. Movement is one of the fastest ways to do this. If you feel fear creeping in, stand up, take a deep breath, shake out your arms, lift your chin, straighten your posture. When you shift your body, you shift your emotional state. And when your body is calm and open, your mind follows. That's why athletes have pre-game rituals. That's why successful speakers use physical warm-ups before going on stage. They're training their nervous system to shift out of fear and into confidence. Breathing is another powerful tool. Fear creates shallow, rapid breathing, which tells your nervous system that you're under threat. But when you breathe slowly and deeply, you send the opposite message. I'm safe, I'm in control. That's why techniques like box breathing, inhale for 4 counts, hold for 4 counts, exhale for 4 counts, are so effective. They slow down your nervous system and override the fear response. When you combine deep breathing with powerful body language, you create a state of calm strength. And in that state, fear has no room to grow. Fear is not something you conquer once. It's something you train yourself to handle every day. Just like an athlete conditions their body for performance, you must condition your mind to respond to fear with strength instead of hesitation. One of the most effective ways to do this is by building what I call a fear response ritual. This is a set of actions that you perform the moment fear shows up. Most people hesitate when fear hits. They pause, they overthink, and in that moment of hesitation, fear gains power. But when you have a ritual, something automatic, you override hesitation. You replace fear with action. Your ritual could be as simple as 3 deep breaths, a power pose, and a clear affirmation. The moment you feel fear creeping in, you stop, you breathe, you stand strong, you say something powerful out loud. Something like, I move forward no matter what, or I do hard things, or fear does not control me. When you do this enough times, your mind starts associating fear with action instead of avoidance. And once that happens, fear loses its grip. Another powerful technique is reframing fear as excitement. Physiologically, fear and excitement feel almost identical. Your heart beats faster, your energy rises, your body prepares for action. The only difference is the story you attach to the sensation. Most people feel that rush and say, I'm nervous. But successful people feel the exact same sensation and say, I'm excited. Instead of thinking, well, what if I fail? They think, what if this goes better than I expected? Instead of freezing, they lean in. And that mental shift, turning fear into fuel, changes everything. Your brain is a prediction machine. It constantly scans for danger. It looks for patterns. It tries to anticipate what's coming next. And if your pattern is to see fear and retreat, your brain reinforces that response. But if your pattern is to see fear and move forward, your brain rewires itself to expect action instead of avoidance. This is why exposure therapy works. This is why elite performers put themselves in pressure situations again and again. Because the more you face fear intentionally, the more normal it becomes. Think about a firefighter running into a burning building. The first time they did it, their fear response was probably overwhelming. Their mind screamed at them to stop. Their body resisted. But after repeating the experience over and over, their brain adapted. It stopped reacting with fear. It started seeing danger as something manageable. The same thing happens in your life. The first time you face rejection, it stings. The first time you put yourself in an uncomfortable situation, it feels overwhelming. But after repetition, it stops feeling like a threat. And this is the secret. Fear only controls you if it's unfamiliar. The moment you make fear a normal part of your life, it loses its power. There's another key principle that fearless people live by. They focus on possibility instead of problems. Fear magnifies problems. It makes challenges look bigger than they actually are. It distorts reality. But the moment you shift your focus to solutions, everything changes. Instead of thinking, what if I fail? Ask yourself, how can I succeed? Instead of worrying about the worst case scenario, focus on the best case scenario. Because what you focus on expands. If you always focus on risk, fear will dominate your mind. If you always focus on opportunity, confidence will take its place. This is why goal setting is so powerful. When you have a clear vision of where you're going, fear takes a back seat. Your mind becomes fixated on progress instead of obstacles. But if you wake up every day with no direction, fear fills the empty space. It creates doubt. It makes you question yourself. So one of the most effective ways to eliminate fear is to make your vision so big, so exciting, so powerful that fear becomes irrelevant. Fearless people don't have less fear than everyone else. They just have more purpose. And here's the final shift. Fear does not mean stop. Fear means go. Most people feel fear and wait for it to go away. But fearless people understand that fear is a sign they're moving in the right direction. If you never feel fear, you're not growing. If you never feel discomfort, you're not evolving. If everything feels safe, it means you're staying exactly where you are. So instead of avoiding fear, start chasing it. Instead of seeing it as a stop sign, see it as a compass. If something scares you, but excites you at the same time, that's a sign you need to go toward it, not away from it. Because when you rewire your response to fear, when you start running toward the things that scare you instead of away from them, you unlock a level of confidence, power, and freedom that most people never experience. Fear does not disappear when you achieve success. It does not vanish when you gain more experience. The people you admire, those who seem fearless in everything they do, they still feel fear. The difference is they have learned to carry fear with them instead of letting it stop them. The greatest performers in the world, the most successful entrepreneurs, the strongest leaders, they don't wait for fear to go away before they take action. They take action despite the fear. They have learned that fear is not the enemy. Inaction is. One of the most powerful shifts you can make is to stop seeing fear as something to fight and start seeing it as something to use. Fear is energy. Fear is fuel. Fear is your body's way of preparing you for something important. The problem is not the fear itself. The problem is what you do with it. If you resist fear, it controls you. But if you use fear, it pushes you forward. Think about a time when fear made you sharper. Maybe you were nervous before an important event, and that nervous energy made you prepare more. Maybe you were scared before a big challenge, and that fear forced you to focus. That is the power of fear when you channel it correctly. The key is to redirect fear's energy. When fear tells you to retreat, you train yourself to step forward instead. When fear makes your heart race, you remind yourself, this is not danger, this is power. This is how elite performers operate. Before stepping into the ring, a fighter feels fear, but they don't run from it. They use it. They convert it into aggression, speed, precision. A musician feels fear before stepping on stage, but they transform it into focus, into presence, into passion. The greatest speakers, the greatest athletes, the greatest creators, they don't fight fear, they use it. And you can do the same. Instead of letting fear drain your energy, you harness it. Instead of letting it paralyze you, you move with it. Every time you feel fear, take action immediately. Because hesitation is what makes fear grow. The longer you wait, the stronger the fear becomes. Think about this. If you stand at the edge of a cold pool, hesitating to jump in, your mind builds resistance. The longer you stand there, the worse it feels. But if you jump in immediately, the discomfort only lasts a few seconds. Fear works the same way. The faster you take action, the faster the fear disappears. This is why people who make bold moves seem fearless. They don't give fear time to grow. They take action before fear has a chance to stop them. This is the strategy. Shorten the gap between fear and action. The moment you feel yourself hesitating, move. Now, not later, not after you've thought about it. Now, if you need to make a difficult phone call, dial the number before you can talk yourself out of it. If you need to approach someone, take the first step before fear has time to take over. If you need to speak up in a meeting, say the words before your mind starts creating excuses. Fear thrives in hesitation. But when you act fast, fear has no space to grow. The next shift is this. Fear is not a sign to stop. It's a sign you're growing. If you never feel fear, you're not pushing yourself. If you never feel discomfort, you're staying inside your safe zone. But if you feel fear every single day, it means you are stretching, expanding, evolving. Most people assume fear means they're doing something wrong. But the truth is, fear means you're doing something right. It means you're moving into new territory. It means you're stepping outside your limits. So instead of avoiding fear, seek it out. Look for the things that scare you, but also excite you. Look for the challenges that make you uncomfortable, but also call you forward. Because on the other side of fear is everything you want. Fear is a test. Every time you feel it, you are being given a choice. Step forward or shrink back. And the decision you make in that moment determines the direction of your life. Most people take the easy route. They rationalize their fear. They convince themselves that waiting is the smart move. That hesitation is just being cautious. But in reality, they are letting fear dictate their future. You cannot let fear become your compass. If you do, it will lead you toward comfort, toward safety, toward mediocrity. But if you learn to flip the script, if you start using fear as a signal to move forward instead of a warning to back off, you will unlock levels of power that most people never reach. Every great achievement in history came from someone who moved forward despite fear. Every innovation, every breakthrough, every act of greatness. Do you think the first explorers to cross the oceans weren't afraid? Do you think world-class athletes don't feel fear before competition? Do you think the greatest entrepreneurs never feel doubt? They all feel it, but they move anyway. This is the difference. Fearful people wait for the fear to go away before they act. Fearless people act before the fear has a chance to stop them. And the more you do this, the more natural it becomes. The reason most people don't take action is because they imagine fear lasting forever. They think, what if this feeling never goes away? But the truth is, fear is temporary. It lasts only as long as you hesitate. The moment you step forward, the moment you take action, fear starts to fade. Think about it. How many times have you built up fear in your mind, only to realize afterward that it was never as bad as you imagined? How many times have you avoided something for weeks, maybe months, only to find that when you finally did it, it was easier than you thought? That is proof. Proof that fear is just a shadow. It looks big, but it disappears the moment you walk through it. This is why fearless people don't overthink. They don't analyze fear. They don't negotiate with it. They feel it, they acknowledge it, and they move through it. Your mind is designed to keep you safe, but if you're not careful, it will keep you small. Every time you step towards something bigger, your brain will resist. It will try to keep you where you are. Not because it wants to hurt you, but because its job is survival. But here's the reality. You don't need survival instincts when chasing your dreams. You need courage. You need conviction. You need to train your brain to embrace uncertainty instead of avoiding it. Most people assume they need confidence before they take action. But confidence doesn't come before action. It comes from action. The first time you do something, you will feel fear. The second time, it will feel slightly less overwhelming. By the 10th time, it will feel normal. By the 100th time, it will be automatic. This is why fearless people embrace repetition. They don't wait to feel ready. They don't expect to master something instantly. They commit to showing up again and again until what once scared them becomes second nature. You can rewire your brain to see fear differently. You can train yourself to associate fear with progress instead of danger. The key is simple. Expose yourself to fear every single day. Make it a habit to do one thing daily that pushes you outside your comfort zone. It doesn't have to be extreme. It just has to be consistent. If you avoid difficult conversations, start speaking up in small ways. If you fear rejection, start making requests that might get a no. If you struggle with self-doubt, start putting yourself in situations where you are challenged. At first, it will feel uncomfortable, but over time, discomfort becomes normal. And when discomfort is normal, fear loses its power. Your mind adapts to what you repeatedly expose it to. If you expose it to fear, it learns that fear is a natural part of growth. If you avoid fear, it learns that fear is something to run from. So the question is, what are you teaching your mind every day? If you train yourself to step forward despite fear, you will develop unshakable confidence. If you train yourself to hesitate, to back down, to overthink, you will strengthen your fear response. Every action you take is a signal to your brain. Every moment of hesitation tells your brain that fear is a threat. Every moment of courage tells your brain that fear is just another step toward growth. This is the strategy. Don't wait for fear to disappear. Train yourself to act while it's still there. Train yourself to expect fear, to welcome it, to use it. Because once you master this, once you make fear your ally instead of your enemy, you will be unstoppable. Fear is an illusion of control. It tricks you into believing that if you hesitate long enough, if you think things through just a little more, if you wait for the right time, you can eliminate risk. But that's not how life works. Hesitation does not remove risk. It does not protect you. It only delays action. And in that delay, in that hesitation, fear grows stronger. The moment you realize that you will never have perfect certainty, that there will never be a moment when you feel completely ready, is the moment you free yourself from fear's grip. Because fearless living is not about eliminating uncertainty. It's about moving forward despite it. The people who create extraordinary lives are not the ones who have no fear. They are the ones who refuse to let fear dictate their choices. They have trained themselves to see fear as part of the process, not as a barrier. If you want to live fearlessly, you must train yourself to take action before you feel ready. If you wait until you feel confident, you will wait forever. If you wait until all the fear is gone, you will never move. There is no magic moment when fear disappears. There is only the moment you decide to act anyway. Think about every major decision you've made in your life. The big ones. The ones that shaped who you are today. How many of those decisions were made in total confidence? How many of those moments were completely free of fear? Probably none. Because the truth is, life-changing moments always come with fear. But the difference between people who succeed and people who stay stuck is simple. One moves forward despite the fear, while the other waits for the fear to leave. If you want to become fearless, you must become a person of action. Fear is powerless against momentum. The faster you move, the less time you give fear to build. This is why people who take bold action seem to have endless confidence. They are not fearless by nature. They are fearless by habit. They have conditioned themselves to move before their mind has time to create doubt. Your brain wants to keep you safe. But safe does not mean successful. Safe does not mean fulfilled. Safe does not mean alive. Safe just means comfortable. And the life you want, the person you are meant to become, does not exist in your comfort zone. It exists on the other side of fear. So if you truly want to live fearlessly, you must choose growth over comfort. You must develop the habit of leaning into fear instead of pulling away from it. You must train your body, your mind, and your spirit to see fear as an invitation, not as a warning. You do this by making fear a daily challenge. If you fear rejection, make it a goal to get rejected on purpose. If you fear speaking up, make it a rule to say something in every meeting, every gathering, every opportunity. The more you engage with fear, the less control it has over you. The more you lean into discomfort, the stronger you become. And here's the secret. When you push past fear often enough, it stops showing up the same way. What used to terrify you becomes normal. What used to feel impossible becomes second nature. You evolve, you grow, you transform. People assume that fearless living is a personality trait, but it is not. It is a skill. And like any skill, it can be developed. Your job is to train yourself to see fear differently, to step toward it instead of away from it, to act before hesitation has a chance to grow. Fear will always be there. But once you stop treating it like a threat and start treating it like fuel, it no longer controls you. And the moment you master this, the moment you decide that fear is not your enemy, but your greatest tool, is the moment you step into your most powerful self. Fear will always be there. It will never fully disappear. But the difference between those who succeed and those who stay stuck is simple. One waits for fear to leave, the other moves forward anyway. The life you want, the dreams you have, the goals you are chasing, they are all on the other side of fear. Every time you let fear stop you, you delay your own progress. Every time you choose comfort over courage, you reinforce the habit of hesitation. But the moment you decide no more, everything changes. The moment you stop waiting for fear to disappear and start moving through it, fear loses its power. You stop overthinking. You stop hesitating. You stop holding yourself back. This is how fearless people operate. Not because they were born with unshakable confidence, not because they never feel doubt, but because they have trained themselves to act before fear has a chance to take over. Brain. Every time you face fear and take action, you rewire your mind. Every time you move forward, instead of hesitating, you build the habit of fearlessness. And the more you do it, the easier it becomes. So ask yourself, where is fear holding you back? What decisions have you been avoiding? What conversations have you been putting off? What goals have you been too afraid to chase? Because the answer to those questions will tell you exactly where you need to go. The very thing you fear most is often the thing that will set you free. Fear is not your enemy. It is your compass. If something scares you but excites you at the same time, that's a sign. That is the direction you need to move in. And the faster you act, the faster fear fades. There is no secret formula, no magic moment when everything becomes easy. There is only the decision to act. And once you make that decision enough times, fear stops being something you run from and starts being something you run toward. Because when you reach the end of your life, you won't regret the things you tried. You won't regret the risks you took, the moments you stepped into uncertainty. You will regret the moments you let fear win. So don't wait. Don't hesitate. Don't let fear dictate your choices for another day. Train yourself to move forward. Train yourself to take action. Train yourself to live fearlessly.